My beloved child. Stop scrolling for a moment. Do not rush past these words, because something has been waiting patiently to reach you. You did not arrive here by accident. Out of countless voices, your heart was quietly led toward this one. There is a reason your spirit paused here today. There is a reason your eyes found this message now instead of yesterday or tomorrow. Stay until the end, because what is about to unfold has been hidden beneath the surface for far longer than you realize, and every passing moment brings you closer to a truth that was never meant to stay buried forever. Listen carefully, my child. I have watched every tear you tried to hide from the world. I have counted every silent prayer you whispered when no one else knew your heart was breaking. There were nights when you wondered whether heaven had forgotten your name. There were mornings when you smiled for everyone around you while carrying questions too heavy for your own soul. Yet even during those quiet moments of uncertainty, my hands never released you. My angels never stopped walking beside you. Even when you believed nothing was changing, invisible movements had already begun behind doors your human eyes could not see. Today I tell you this not to frighten you, but to prepare your heart. Something extraordinary has already begun unfolding. It started with a conversation that almost never happened. It started with words that someone nearly decided to keep hidden forever. One relative carried a secret for years. That secret remained locked behind careful smiles, ordinary conversations, and familiar family gatherings. Many believed it would remain hidden until the end of their days. Yet heaven had already appointed a moment when silence would lose its power. Do not skip ahead in your thoughts. Stay with this message, because every piece matters. The mystery cannot be understood all at once. Just as dawn arrives gradually before the full light appears, this revelation must unfold one step at a time. Your soulmate has been walking through a season they themselves could not fully understand. They sensed something changing deep inside, yet they could not explain why old dreams suddenly felt empty. They tried to move forward using their own understanding. They listened to opinions, followed expectations, and trusted voices that sounded confident. Yet every path seemed to circle back toward unanswered questions. They often wondered why every important decision became strangely delayed. They blamed timing. They blamed circumstances. Sometimes they even blamed themselves. But I tell you now, my child, those delays were not punishment. They were protection. There were moments when your soulmate stood one decision away from stepping into a future that was never designed for them. Had events unfolded according to human plans alone, they would have walked into relationships built upon misunderstanding, commitments lacking true peace, and promises that appeared beautiful on the outside while hiding emptiness within. Yet I placed unseen barriers before those roads. What looked like disappointment was actually divine mercy quietly changing direction. There is something you have not known. Someone within the family circle noticed details that everyone else ignored. Not because they were wiser than everyone around them. Not because they possessed special power. But because I allowed their heart to remain awake while others looked only at appearances. For a long time, this relative remained silent. They carried observations that refused to disappear. They saw patterns repeating themselves. They noticed conversations that did not make sense. They remembered words spoken years earlier that everyone else had forgotten. Piece after piece slowly formed a picture they could no longer ignore. Yet fear kept them quiet. They questioned themselves. What if I am wrong? What if speaking changes everything? What if no one believes me? Their silence lasted far longer than it should have. But heaven never forgot the assignment I had placed within their heart. Pause here for another moment. Something even greater is approaching. Stay until the end, because the next part of this story reaches deeper than anyone expected. My child, there are moments when my timing appears impossibly slow. Humans often believe silence means nothing is happening. Yet my silence is never empty. While people waited for visible answers, invisible preparations continued without interruption. Hearts were being softened. Pride was being reduced. Old misunderstandings were slowly losing their strength. Circumstances were quietly rearranging themselves one conversation at a time. Even you experienced this without realizing it. Remember those unexpected moments when you felt drawn to pray without understanding why. Remember those days when memories suddenly returned without warning? Remember the strange sense that something important was approaching even though nothing around you seemed different? Those were not meaningless emotions. Your spirit was sensing movements your mind could not yet explain. Your soulmate experienced similar moments. Sometimes they would stop in the middle of an ordinary day because an unexplainable feeling whispered that their future was changing. Sometimes they dreamed dreams they quickly forgot after waking. Sometimes they felt compelled to reconsider decisions they had already made. Those impressions were not accidents. Heaven was already preparing both of your hearts. Still, neither of you knew what would become the turning point. It was not a grand announcement. It was not a dramatic public event. It was not a miracle that everyone immediately recognized. Instead, it began inside an ordinary conversation between family members. A simple question was asked. An unexpected memory resurfaced. Silence filled the room. Then someone finally spoke words they had carried for far too long. Everything changed in that moment. No one realized how powerful those words would become. At first they sounded almost insignificant. Just another family story. Just another forgotten detail. Just another memory from years gone by. But heaven knew differently. Because hidden inside that forgotten memory rested the key that would completely transform how your soulmate understood their own future. Do not leave now. Something huge is waiting for you. The deepest part of this message has not yet arrived. My child, many people judge life by appearances alone. They assume they know someone's story because they witnessed only a few chapters. But I see every page. I know every hidden conversation. I know every tear shed behind closed doors. I know every promise broken in secret. I know every act of quiet kindness that no one else applauded. Nothing escapes my sight. That relative finally understood this. They realized silence was no longer protecting anyone. They realized truth, spoken with love, could rescue a future before it was too late. Yet speaking required courage. Because truth often changes comfortable stories. Truth interrupts assumptions. Truth exposes illusions. Truth asks hearts to become honest. Not everyone welcomes such moments. Some resist them. Some deny them. Some pretend nothing has changed. But once truth has entered a room, it refuses to leave. That day, your soulmate listened more carefully than ever before. Something inside them shifted. Words they once ignored suddenly carried extraordinary meaning. Old memories connected with new understanding. Questions that had haunted them for years finally began receiving answers. Yet those answers created an even greater mystery. Because the secret did not simply explain the past. It pointed directly toward the future. The future where your path and your soulmate's path were already being quietly redirected by my hand. Stay with me. Do not skip this moment. There is another layer still hidden beneath everything you have heard. Many have misunderstood what destiny truly means. Destiny is not merely reaching a destination. Destiny is becoming the person capable of receiving what I prepared. Had your soulmate discovered this secret too early, pride might have distorted it. Had they learned it too late, fear might have overwhelmed it. But now their heart has been shaped by waiting. Now disappointment has taught compassion. Now unanswered prayers have created humility. Now they are finally able to hear truth without running from it. This is why my timing remains perfect even when humans call it delayed. There is another reason this revelation matters. It is connected to something you yourself have carried. Perhaps you wondered why certain doors refused to open. Perhaps you questioned why relationships shifted unexpectedly. Perhaps you wondered why plans dissolved just when success appeared close. You believed those moments stood alone. They did not. Invisible threads connected everything together. Long before you recognized them, I was weaving separate stories into one greater purpose. Your story. Your soulmate's story. Even the relative's story. Each seemed unrelated. Yet every chapter moved toward the same appointed moment. My angels stood watch over conversations that almost never happened. They guarded opportunities that almost disappeared. They redirected choices that could have led in completely different directions. None of this happened randomly. Every step served a purpose beyond human understanding. My child, I know curiosity is growing inside your heart. You want to know what the secret was. You want to know why it carried such enormous power. You want to know how one relative's decision to finally speak could reshape everything your soulmate believed about tomorrow. That answer is close. Closer than you think. But not yet. Because before truth can be fully revealed, hearts must become ready to receive it. This message is preparing yours. There is one final thing I must tell you before this part comes to its end. When that relative finished speaking, the room became unusually quiet. No one rushed to answer. No one knew what to say. Even your soulmate remained completely still. Not because they doubted what they had heard, but because another memory suddenly returned with astonishing clarity. A memory they had forgotten for years. A promise someone made long ago. A promise connected to you in a way no one had ever imagined. The moment those forgotten words returned, your soulmate slowly looked toward the window. Their heartbeat changed. Their breathing slowed. For the very first time, they realized the future they had been chasing might never have been their true future at all. And just as they opened their mouth to reveal what that forgotten promise meant, someone unexpected entered the room. Everything stopped. The next words were never spoken. Not yet. Do not look away now, my beloved child. Stay with me a little longer, because the silence that interrupted everything was not empty. It was filled with purpose. What seemed like an interruption was, in truth, another movement of heaven. The person who stepped into that room had no idea they had arrived at the exact moment when years of hidden truth were about to rise into the light. Yet nothing catches me by surprise. I knew every step they would take before they ever opened that door. Even their unexpected arrival became part of a greater design that no human mind could have arranged. Your soulmate felt something they could not explain. Their heart urged them to speak immediately, yet another quiet voice deep within whispered, "Wait." They had spent so much of their life reacting too quickly, trusting emotions that changed with circumstances. But this moment was different. For the first time, they chose stillness instead of haste. That single decision protected a revelation that needed just a little more time before it could be understood completely. Do not skip this message. Stay until the very end, because every sentence is leading you toward something extraordinary. You have waited longer than you realize for this moment, and heaven is not finished speaking. The relative who had finally revealed the hidden truth noticed the expression on your soulmate's face. It was not the face of confusion anymore. It was the face of someone remembering pieces of a story they had unknowingly carried within them for years. Memories that once seemed disconnected suddenly began fitting together like fragments of an ancient puzzle. A conversation from childhood. A promise made during a family gathering. A photograph that had always seemed ordinary. A name spoken casually long ago. None of these moments appeared important at the time, but together they formed a picture that could no longer be ignored. Your soulmate quietly excused themselves from the room. They needed air. They needed space to think. They stepped outside, where the evening breeze carried a peace they had not felt in years. The sky above seemed strangely calm. The noise inside their hearts slowly faded, replaced by an unmistakable awareness that I was near. I have always spoken to hearts that become quiet enough to listen. Many search for me in dramatic signs, yet they overlook the gentle whisper that changes everything. Your soulmate finally recognized that whisper. It did not accuse them. It did not shame them. It simply reminded them that I had been guiding every step, even when they believed they were walking alone. They looked back over the past few years and suddenly understood why certain opportunities disappeared just before they seemed perfect. They understood why relationships that looked promising slowly dissolved without explanation. They remembered prayers they once thought had gone unanswered. In that sacred moment, disappointment transformed into gratitude because they realized those closed doors had not been losses. They had been rescue. Something huge is waiting for you. Stay with this message. The greatest part of the revelation is still unfolding. Meanwhile, the relative remained inside, speaking quietly with another family member. Their voice trembled, not because they regretted telling the truth, but because they knew there was still one final piece they had never shared with anyone. This final piece had remained hidden for one simple reason: they believed no one was ready to hear it. Years earlier, they had stumbled upon something unexpected while organizing old family belongings. Tucked inside a forgotten box was an envelope that looked ordinary from the outside. Dust covered its edges. Time had faded the paper. Most people would have thrown it away without another thought. But something urged them to keep it. They never opened it. Not because they lacked curiosity, but because deep inside they sensed the moment had not yet come. For years that envelope remained hidden, untouched, waiting for the exact day heaven had already chosen. Today, after speaking the first part of the truth, they suddenly remembered where they had placed it. Their hands began to tremble. Their breathing became slower. Their eyes filled with emotion. Because they realized that forgotten envelope might answer every question your soulmate had carried. My child, there are treasures that cannot be discovered before their appointed season. Some truths remain protected until hearts become mature enough to receive them without fear, pride, or misunderstanding. This is why waiting is never wasted in my kingdom. Every delay carries purpose. Every season prepares you for the next. As your soulmate stood beneath the quiet sky, they felt an overwhelming desire to pray. They had not prayed with such honesty in a long time. There were no rehearsed words. No polished sentences. Just a simple whisper. Father, if you are truly leading me, help me understand. That prayer rose to heaven like incense. I heard every word. Before the final syllable left their lips, my angels had already begun moving in ways they could not yet see. The peace they suddenly felt was not imagination. It was my answer. Not an answer explaining everything, but an answer assuring them they no longer needed to fear what was coming. Do not leave now. Something extraordinary is closer than ever. Inside the house, the relative walked slowly toward an old cabinet. Every step felt heavier than the last. Their hands searched carefully through forgotten keepsakes until their fingers touched the corner of a small wooden box. There it was. Exactly where they had left it years before. The envelope remained inside. Untouched. Waiting. They stared at it for a long time without speaking. Countless emotions crossed their heart. What if opening this changes everything? What if this reveals something no one expects? What if this confirms what I have suspected all these years? Yet another voice, quieter but stronger, whispered within them. It is time. At that exact moment, your soulmate walked back into the room. Neither of them spoke immediately. They simply looked at one another. Some moments require no words. Truth has a way of filling silence more powerfully than conversation ever could. Your soulmate noticed the envelope resting gently in the relative's hands. Without knowing why, their heartbeat quickened. Something inside them recognized that this ordinary-looking envelope carried extraordinary significance. Even before it was opened, they sensed their life was standing at the edge of irreversible change. My beloved child, I ask you once again not to rush ahead in your thoughts. Remain present. Let your heart stay open. The greatest revelations are never forced. They unfold one breath at a time. The relative finally spoke. I think, this belongs to your future. Those simple words echoed through the room. No one moved. No one interrupted. Even the ordinary sounds of the house seemed to disappear. Your soulmate reached out slowly. Their fingertips brushed against the aged paper. The moment they touched it, another forgotten memory returned. This time it was clearer than ever. They remembered hearing someone say years ago, when the right season arrives, everything hidden will finally make sense. Back then those words meant nothing. Now they felt like a message that had been waiting across time. Your soulmate closed their eyes. They whispered my name. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just sincerely. That sincerity opened a door inside their heart that had remained closed for years. As they prepared to open the envelope, they noticed something written across the back in faded handwriting. It was only a few words. Yet those few words caused every color to leave their face. Because those words mentioned someone they never expected. Someone directly connected to the story of you. Their hands froze. The relative gasped softly. The room fell completely silent. And just before the envelope was finally opened, someone quietly said, "If what's inside is true, neither of your lives will ever be the same again." Then the seal slowly began to break.